Okay, it's Thursday, and we're at the X, just below to the right of that road, white road that you see, where it says Penberi. We're going to follow that green dotted path down to the coastal trail, and we'll start moving up this way towards Trefin, where I stay tonight. And here's the sign confirming that the bus driver was just not merely trying to get rid of me. Says public footpath only, which begs the question, why is it a road? Just passed through a cattle operation there, which represents ownership of the land that we see close at hand, I think. And we'll be hiking up here to the left and down to the coastal path. There's our first morning introduction to these spectacular golden flowers. This structure, I don't know what it is. It's not old. I mean, it's old, maybe within the last century, but not even sure what it's for. She said I'd be passing a water tank, but on my right, so I don't think it's that. The lady of the ranch and I had a little bit of a conversation talking about ranches in Wyoming and their value and how land is not being grown, so it's getting limited and being reduced and more valuable. You always wonder what old structures are for. These aren't that old, but wonder what that cement structure's for, what used to be here. Now, some of what we're going to encounter today are old quarries. Whether this is part of anything like that, I don't know. No slouch of a facility, whatever it was. So I said good morning to the ladies, and they seemed to respond, me. Well, okay, it's hard to tell, I hope. Nope, yes, not sure. This one, I think I've learned everything. Something new. This is how you open this thing up. First of all, I have to slide this up. Then you can pull this lever back, see? Kinda, well, you can. Can't do it with one hand, I guess. There we go. And then, what's nice is you slide it forward, it automatically closes. I hadn't seen something like that before. Another little bit of chit-chat. And I'll follow this fence line down. And that's where we're going, up there somewhere. After we find the fence line down through here, and then pick up the trail down there. Down there, from where all those cows were around the fence to that fence line, and with a little bit of a false start, came into this pasture and then backed up thinking that's not right, found my way up there and then down through here, and now we're finally on the path from whence we came. And look at that sailboat just coming out for a brisk day of this great wind, for sailing at least, and this is where we're going to go. Perspective for the height of these cliffs and how close the trail goes to it, and sometimes it's a lot closer than what you're seeing right here. You need to keep your wits. On a rainy day it must be particularly devilish. See large holes that must be badgers built right into the side, and I think it's because they live off of what lives down in that hole, which is probably a mouse. A few feet I have to stop when I encounter a new flower. we've seen before. I think those flowers, when they open up into a long tubular shape that's very pretty, like a scoop. See, I haven't made a lot of progress yet. Here's what I mean by big hole. That's bigger than our badger holes. Maybe it's something bigger than a badger. Don't know what it should be up here though. How many years or decades or centuries has this land been farmed? Whatever it is, it's tough enough to have created this mound by digging out this really rough shale. So it's got to be one tough dude. Standing next to an edge that has a lot of dirt on it is not my idea of smart, so I stay back a ways. Well, we're getting closer to somewhere. I am getting farther away from where I started over there. Pretty impressive field system, but my guess is that it may primarily be feed for the dairy cows, but I could be wrong for sure. So far, it's only me and that truck, or car, whatever it is, in that field. Haven't seen anybody other than the rancher lady that I spoke with earlier. Looks like some civilization down there. Been a lot of history in this area that we're passing through now. Looks like I get to climb up right now, then drop down there and climb back up, and we're on to some more flats. Kind of complex up there. I'm thinking this pretty little inlet might have been a place where they loaded shale that was mined or whatever you call it in this area, and that's what that road there might have been originally for. I think now, I hope it's used for kayakers or something like that. Got big giant arrows here, which could be misleading except for that pretty well-worn path. This is what you want to be afraid of, in my opinion, next to those cliffs of soil like this that can crumble up from underneath you. You're gone. Close as I can get to what's called something like a butterfly, but I think this is a moth. But nothing lands for very long. To me, the sound of waves crashing on the rocks is one of the main songs of the sea. This is the little hamlet of Abereiddy, or however you pronounce it. And we continue up there somewhere. Hike from where my thumb is, from the red line down to the green line, and then up along to where it says Abereiddy, where I've got a number 2 written, the Portgain, and then Trefin. Looks like about a little bit more than twice the distance we've walked already. Not twice, but one more. of the slate quarry. More of the remains. And that looks like it might have been a building there. Or this whole thing was a building. But we'll walk down and see what that was. This is the source of slate that's probably used in roofs and other paving and that sort of thing in the old day. And this is where it was harvested, for lack of a better term. This is called the Blue Lagoon now because it used to be the pit where it was, the stone was taken out of, but then it was breached by the sea somehow, and so now it's a lagoon. Interesting if there are old photographs somewhere. I haven't seen them yet. Show what all these structures would have been. Oh, a nice beach to walk around there with a stairway to get you down, which is pretty cool. Day beach. It's still wind blowing now. Here a deep fjord-like cut back into the cliffside. Now looking back from where we came, I think we came from that knobby mountain on the left this morning. Another view of Seine. That for a drop off. Little cleft in the stone adds some interest. The area I'm walking through right now is loaded with big walls. As I pan around, you'll see another. And now I'm walking on a road. To my left, it looks like a moat or something that's been purposely dug to do something, drain water, whatever. But down here we have either a church or a fortress, I'm not sure. A church, and what I'm thinking is it's a quarry operation, or the remains of. And then over here we have the quarry that you see here, probably for the corduroy road that we walked in on. But also it looks like there was a way to use that little area down there as some kind of a harbor for shipping this slate out. Huh. Imagine that work it took to get that out using just the machines they had in those days, which I think were human arms and picks and shovels. It's really interesting. It's got the stucco or cement walls. It looks like as though they had something on them, like tile or something. One thing we know they had was spectacular views. I always get a kick out of the old history. And now notice how that quarry you're looking at extends down the hill quite a little ways too. It's the design. Now this just may be the design of a window. Yeah, here's the design of the wall. Just one brick thickness. Boy, that must have been a lovely thing to hunker around when the winds in the winter were here. Now it's just a collection of rooms. Notice down there on that point, some kind of an obelisk. So on reconsideration of this trough, it was probably dug as a road, or even perhaps more likely as a narrow gauge railroad at some point in time. And in fact, what I thought was corduroy might have been, and we'll see them up here a little bit closer, the ties of a narrow gauge railroad. See the wood ties here, disintegrating but still there. A novel wall design because it's all vertical. However, they're using slate or shale, and of course that breaks in slabs, so that's a logical scheme to use. Plus it probably drains really easily. A fortress-like look, doesn't it? See these hummock-like structures and wonder what it is that makes those. Some kind of moss that builds on itself. So here's the obelisk. Don't remember what it commemorates, but I'll find out. And here not far away, looking like a missile hidden, ready for launch, is another curiosity that is in my notes. And here a cute little village I hadn't noticed as I came around this corner. So we'll be seeing all these shortly. Very dramatic cuts in these cliff sides. I'm guessing gain. That's designed to hold, or once held, doorways or locks that could control whether the water got in here or not. That's interesting. I haven't seen that before. But I bet you it gets outrageous with the North Atlantic screaming into here. But here a pretty little beach. This is all the industrial works of the past. Must have been a loud cranking place here at one time. Just seems to epitomize the 19th century, doesn't it? Cavities were originally used for, I don't know, although notice that window, how it slopes down as though almost like a firing port. But now this is for fishermen to store their lobster traps in, I think. Imagine what these bolts and other fittings served as a purpose at one time. Can't quite see how this lobster pot works, if that's what it is. So I'm guessing we're at Portgain. So I think I'll take a look around. I got plenty of time before we walk to the right, where you see Trefin, and I find the old school Hostel. Bricks were manufactured in Timar using waste from the nearby slate quarry. The hoppers stored road stone, quarried locally, then crushed into different sizes before being loaded onto ships. Originally built in 1851 to export local shale, harbor extended in the 1900s to allow more and bigger ships for loading. Stone was used to surface the roads all over the UK. Look here, this was all extended, as it said. The ships would pull in there, and then the slots that we were looking at that were sloped down, that's why they sloped down. The rock would have tumbled out of those and filled the holes of the ships. So those arched windows we saw with the sloped floors were in fact chutes for taking the ore that was stored up above and dumping it into the holds of the ships. Must have been a loud and cranky place in its day. Here I'm having traditional fish and chips in a little restaurant, quayside, if you will, and apparently an affectation that's familiar to them of garden peas, which I happen to love, and my soda water. I'm upstairs because it's chilly outside when I sit down. Don't mind walking in. I can always put another jacket on. Everything is so nice and tidy and prim. People are so incredibly polite and considerate. I believe this is the little stone building that was the workman's privy. Yeah, it was a two-holer, although that looks pretty small, so I guess you got to know your neighbors really well. This is the sloop bar. It's been here since 1743. Still serves the same purpose. This is the lime kiln. Don't know if we can go inside here and see something. Just like the two we saw at Porthgain. We can't really get in, but there's that exit point there. The lime was apparently used by farmers to reduce, I think, the acidity of the soil, unless I have that reversed. And it was used for whitewashing, paint, and for some other. So this is probably, I don't know how it worked. Here's the top of it. It would have been that cone shape that we saw on the other two. Now we begin the last part of today's hike to Trefen. There's our obelisk. The little town of Portgain. And I had lunch right where that second set of 4 windows is on that facing building. Remember, they used to run tunnels through that mountain over to the other side where one of the quarries was, and then the quarry that we came by at Abereiddy and that will be at Trevine also was served by this facility. The crows along this coast have the same agility they've developed as seagulls. Great flying ability. They don't need to use elsewhere, so you don't notice it. Now, what the purpose of this was, I have to read my notes again. Lovely fish and chips. Also, at a later time, they discovered that the excess, in other words, the tailings, if you will, of working the shale could also be ground up and made bricks of. And so they started a brick industry. And the building that we saw, the remains, are made of those bricks. And presumably that complex we saw up on the hill earlier, same thing. This line gets a little bit more deeply cut in here. And perhaps that village over there is Trefen, where I go for the evening. And then in the morning, if that is where I stop, we continue our hike in this direction. That cleft in that slope over there just looks almost too man-made, doesn't it? Including the beach. But I don't think it is. I think this dolmen has a significance, but I don't recall what it is. And I'm pretty much guessing that that's Trefin, or Trevine as they call it back there. So I think that's where we'll end up. It's not that far a walk from Portgain. Local memorabilia. Shuttle bus just went by on its most current loop. It has all the ear markings of something old like Stonehenge, but I am not sure that it really is. Interesting little harbor, if that's what it is. When the tide comes in, I guess it'll function that way. Maybe that's where they dumped the slate that was harvested up here somewhere. Color that gets your attention, eh? Their little garden, apparently. Thing always looks so neat and tidy in England. The sign for Trefin, or Trevine, excuse me. And I think this is the one Abercastle, 2.5 miles. So I think this is where we'll be coming tomorrow morning to continue. Cute little row of old stone houses, painted up a bit to look a little more interesting in this little town as I enter it. About 8 o'clock in the morning, and I have just left one of the best organized, funkiest green, very well organized and maintained former hostel, and now kind of quasi-hostel bed and breakfast. So it's really your best price option, your best flexibility option if you like to cook for yourself, if you want a breakfast to make for yourself in which they provide everything and done well, good bread, I'm sure it's homemade, etc., etc., etc. It's called the Old Schoolhouse Hostel, even though it's not a hostel anymore. Anyway, it's 8 o'clock. We're about ready to break out of the little town of Trefen, where I had a very enjoyable evening and a little bit of salad and soup. It was very nice at the pub, which is always a restaurant and a pub and the local meeting place, particularly in small towns. That's where we came from. This is where we're going. I assume it goes over that hill and off to the right, and shocker of shocks, no sun. And we're back to our stone fence. This is out of slate or shale, whatever it's called, which makes no surprise since Trefin was one of the three sources of the local shale or slate industry, as we know. But here we've gone back to horizontally laying in the stone, which is very pretty, now covered with different mosses. And then notice they've piled these big rocks on top so the wind won't blow these rocks off like a sheaf of paper. A little bit of rain coming down, just a little bit. And south from where we came. And there on the right you can see outlined against the sea the post that I think signals where I'm going to intersect the coastal path and then start walking right. But this is my first morning view. A little hint of light up there in the sky. Less wind. A whole lot less wind. Nice view as I step onto the coastal path. A recognizable friend from my travels all about the world. Mostly in black, but sometimes in a whole range of colors. Even in the same place. This one a little smaller than most that I've seen, and the first one I've seen so far. He tried to get out of my way, but I just stepped over him. And here's another similar size, maybe slightly smaller, with a brown color. A little spray of flower, not more than about 5 inches across that whole grouping. Interesting, when the sun's not out, then the smaller, pretty colorful things command attention. Like this pretty little walkway of tiny little flowers. It's interesting how along this curving stretch of the path it looks like a wind and its accompanying mist or rain has just combed down this grass into this flowing direction. It's interesting too how you can focus more on the vegetation on the hillside when the sun's not out, because it's the only color differentiator. Rain got a little stronger a few minutes ago, so I put my rain gear on, at least my jacket. And as I pan around, you can probably get an idea of where we'll be hiking for the next 45 minutes or so. I assume this refers to the section we're hiking in of what I assume the National Trust is, the equivalent of our national parks. Or it may refer to this field, but I don't think so. There is an arrow pointing that way, so that could be another part of the trail system. We stay focused on the acorn icon. Pretty little beach to land your kayak and have lunch. Blue sky up to my left, little patches of it. And here beneath me, in fact all around me, are the holes of that large, I'll call it a badger. Those holes look more badger-like. You can see these holes are not used because there's cobwebs over them. Don't know if the others are used over there. Never seen badgers build a whole set of holes, nor have I seen colonies of badgers. It may be just mainly single holes. Asked them for an update on the quality of the grass, but they seem disinclined, unless this one over here actually is giving me a good nodding yes. The rest go on munching. I mean about the diciness of getting too close to the edge. Notice how far you've got to run. Now if that thing had gone all the way and you were standing out on that edge, I'm not sure you can beat the rock. Not sure how much of this we'll be hiking this morning, but somewhere off to the right for sure. Whether we'll get to that far headland or not, I don't know. And here more of the same. Another 10,000 years, 1,000, 100, 1, an hour, a couple of minutes. I think I'll move on. The kaleidoscope herd. It's the way the rancher keeps track somehow. Differentiates between one and the other somehow. This pan gives us a pretty good view of the lifestyle and the scope, perhaps, of some of the ranching and farming enterprises in this part of England at least. Large fields filled with sheep. Here a mix of cows and sheep. And there's some kind of product, might be canola. And here a cute little village, which may be Capleton or something like that. It probably has a sea component in its economy of some sort. How's this for the idyllic English seaside community? And look at this old structure here. There's got to be a story to that, don't you think? Here someone has created a little flower out of seashells and stones at the edge of this little bridge alongside this pretty little creek. Maybe we're seeing the handiwork of a young Wales girl. Carefully built steps to get you down to this little beach. Great place for kids to be raised if there's a few. Sure changes their lifestyle from what it would be in a city. That's what it looks like, an old cannon, seems to. Certainly in a perfect spot to protect this entryway, but we need another one for that entryway. And we know what this is, a lime kiln. Now, begs the question, where'd you get the lime? And number two, why do you need a kiln for lime? The old building that we saw from over there when we walked into Abercastle. And maybe this was part of Abercastle, but I don't think so. Doesn't look like it. Although it's certainly got an older construction. But it had plastered walls. Seeing how they plastered their walls then to make them nice. And now we would leave such buildings completely bare on the inside because of the nostalgic old look. Our last parting view. There's the little bridge where the little shell and stone flower were. And there's our lime kiln. And off. These are the scary places. At least they seem scary. It'd be fun to be kayaking in those areas, but I don't know how you get into this area quickly. In other words, without a long paddle. There's a steep drop down and a steep climb up. It's like a seagull rookery right down there in that crevice. Bay with two beaches, one quite large. Looks like there's a little village up there. Looks like there's still some cloud cover hanging over that headland. Yes, that we've walked from Abercastle up to Abermagh and Aberbach. And at least where we're going is that greater distance, from same distance as from Trefen, from Aberrbach up to Pwll Deri, which is where that guest house is. So that's our hike for today. Maybe Strumbel head, but I don't think so. Long, moderately steep, narrow, windy pathway down to the beach. Leaving stones that are irregular and moving, but maybe a little more solid than walking on those large rounded stones. Here's what I mean. And someone had built, for whatever the reason, a cairn or whatever its purpose was. Our pathway down. Just thought this slope was pretty. Back somewhere that way we have come. And I'm guessing we go right up there where you see that trail after we wrap around this declivity. An intimate little chasm. Again, it'd be fun to have a kayak here. Know how to use it. Just climbed up and over that pile of rocks, which was just plain dangerous. I couldn't even believe it was a trail. Still can't be sure I'm on a trail. It looks like a trail now, and we're going the right direction, but I couldn't believe that they'd run a trail up there when they could have run it down there. I don't even know where I'm at. I'm not even sure. I'm not sure if I passed the place I'm looking for, which is the youth hostel, Pier Dooley or something like that, or not. Lost in the clouds. Well, that acorn confirms I'm on the trail, but it's a wicked trail in that part. Right ahead you may be able to make out through the incoming cloud. No, I can't now, but there's a big white building, which I think is the YHA Hostel. You can see it now. So I think this is a little town where I catch the bus, and I think I will. Or I'll come back up with the bus and hike from here on, maybe into Fishguard, where I'll be staying tonight and tomorrow night. Spectacular view from that hostel if you can get a booking in it, but it was solid on this busy weekend, but other weekends it might not be. And then it would be a choice jewel. I think use of those beaches is included in the price of the hostel, but perhaps you can ask. Cartref Hotel, a very old hotel in Fishguard, Wales. Christine told me she would put me on the top floor where I had a wee bit of a view. We'll take a shower and in a few minutes I'll go out and see what this town's all about. The town square of Fishguard, up that street there, which is High Street, is my Cartref Hotel. A lot of businesses are either closed or for sale. Business is bad. I think that they said the reason is that a lot of the big stores in the big cities are taking all the business from these smaller stores, but there's something more than that going on, because there are businesses that are closed, like this tavern right on the square, the Farmer's Arms, closed. Up the street there is a hostel I talked with the owner with yesterday, but just briefly, because he was one of those men who loved to talk. For the last 40 years he's owned that pub and talked. There's an art gallery that also is a restaurant with minimum prices for their mains at £17. It's a lot of money to have festivals like this to pump up business, but I'm not sure it's going to work very well. The train operates from this town, but there apparently is nobody at the station ever, other than, I guess, when they run the train. So you buy your ticket on the train, and somehow elsewhere you find out what the schedule is. Where I left off yesterday and got picked up, and I've just been dropped off by that bus, which is the substitute, I guess, Strumbel shuttle. And so we'll walk back up this road past the guest house we saw from a distance yesterday, eating my sandwich that the lady at the Cartref Hotel made for me this morning. And hopefully I can get to Strumbel in less than 2.5 hours to get the bus back. Otherwise I have an additional 6-mile hike and I don't want to do it. This is the open face sandwich she made for me. I think there's tuna on there. Got a little candy on top, just nicely done. It's a poor hotel, and I think the lady Christine, who's from Finland, I think she owns it, and it's her retirement. Here's where I came off the trail yesterday afternoon, and now we'll turn right and continue on up the guest house beyond that ridge. There's the route we came up yesterday afternoon. The part that kind of got my attention was right up over that bluff there. Doesn't look like much, but it was all rocky and no distinguishable trail really for part of it, and then the fog came in so you couldn't see what we see now. That part unnerved me. It was also, I felt, a difficult part of the trail. I called it dangerous yesterday. I still think it is, but not so bad in this light of day. Sounds like a cuckoo bird, doesn't it? And I didn't remember hearing it, I think. Perhaps on the Hadrian Wall hike. There's the youth hostel just poking over the top. The trail from the road takes us quickly and swiftly and steeply sometimes down to the top of the cliffs, as advertised. And way down there is where we started yesterday somewhere. Gorgeous morning. Could not ask for anything better in this part of the country. Succumbing to the irresistible. Left-hand corner is the YHA. And there in the distance, we can see the yellow fields we saw yesterday morning. Okay, we're about top of this knoll where there's a cairn, one of this indicates that there once was an Iron Age fortress of some sort here, I don't know. But gives us a good, probably 360 degree as I keep turning. There's the Strumbel Head Lighthouse that we're going to, so we're not far away. We'll be well within our time frame for a very easy day. Pretty little spot. Don't know how close you can get to the water. It's probably pretty boggy there since the trail is covered with water right here.